Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So today I'm going over the three Rust Belt states that President Trump won last time, as well as looking at how they were polling back in 2016 to see if there's any parallels between this time and last time around. So before I do that, I just want to show you President Trump in the RCP national average right now is down 49.3 to 43.2. Biden's up by about 6.1. Now, this isn't necessarily important or not important, but I just think that the national vote doesn't really matter too much because the national vote is just what the country as a whole is thinking, and as we know, we elect presidents based off of the electoral college in the battleground states. So Biden might be up by 6, but that really doesn't matter. It's the swing states you have to start thinking about. That's why they also RCP added this new polling thing called Top Battlegrounds. This one's really interesting because this shows a 3.6% race. This shows a very close race. It's important to realize the betting odds is 55 44 pretty much right now. So if that were, keep an eye on the betting odds after the first debate because that could be a very key indicator of how people think the race will go. And if you're betting money on how you think the race will go, there's a pretty good chance that you're pretty confident in one side's going to win or not. So anyway, that being said, first I'm going to start in the state of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin right now, Joe Biden has 49.8%. Donald Trump is 44.3. This new poll that came out, there were two that came out a few days ago. One's from Susquehanna. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Susquehanna has Biden up 2. Trafalgar, the Republican-leaning poll, has Biden up 3. I didn't really believe it at the time, but I think Trump is definitely down in Wisconsin right now because if the Republican-leaning poll, which Trump touted as being one of the more accurate polls from 2016, shows him down by 3, even though the margin of error is 2.8, I think Trump is narrowly down in Wisconsin right now. But this is what's important. Ready? This is 2020. Excuse me. Here, this is 2016. Okay, this is Wisconsin. Trump versus Clinton in 2016. Hillary was winning in the polls by about 6.5% going into Election Day. So Hillary was still up, and she was up by outside the margin of error. That's pretty much set in stone. However, what's important here is that she only had 46.8% of the vote. And Gary Johnson had 5.8%, Jill Stein had 2%. When there's a big percentage of third party voters in polling, that just means they're often dissatisfied with the two candidates. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to vote for them, though. And in Gary Johnson's case, he was more a libertarian's more conservative, tend to favor conservatives. So a lot of those voters would go to Trump. About 2% of those voters did end up voting for Trump. So Hillary Clinton had a lot of undecided vote because she wasn't very popular, although Trump wasn't either, but Hillary Clinton was not very popular. So there was still a lot of undecided vote that ended up voting for President Trump because the Real Clear Politics average for Hillary was pretty much spot on. They had her winning 46.8%. She got 46.5. They almost hit it on the head for how much she was going to get. However, they did underestimate Trump, where Trump probably won the independent vote as expected. But that was supposed to get Trump to about 45% probably, at best, and give Hillary the win still. I don't think they accounted for President Trump winning that 2% from Gary Johnson and President Trump being able to get enough independent vote to pull an upset. So Wisconsin, there was a lot of room for Trump to make up a comeback. Coming back to 2020 now, is there enough room for Trump? Well, according to the polls right now, not really. I mean, Biden's at 49.8. He's been going up for the last few weeks maybe or so, but he was at 50, 51, so now he is starting to go back down. Trump looks like he's starting to go back up. I mean, I'm recording this September 29th, so the first debate, it's happening in a few hours. We don't know what's going to happen, so we saw that Biden was leading. Trump started to come back up. That was about 46%. Now Biden's really gone back up again. So Trump started to go back up. Biden's starting to go back down if you look at the graph and the trends. So if Biden keeps going down and Trump's going up, Trump has room to make up ground. But this first debate's pretty important for Trump. All right, so now I want to go to the state of Michigan because Michigan's an interesting one. Remember, Biden's up 5.5 in Wisconsin, 5.2 in Michigan. President Trump, for some reason, is technically performing better in Michigan than he is in Wisconsin, which is very surprising considering I think a month ago now, President Trump pulled a lot of his ads out of Michigan I think he did start campaigning there again, but he pulled him out for a temporary amount of time. But President Trump is technically polling better in Michigan. However, CNBC Change Research changes Democratic bias. CNBC is typically Democratic bias as well, but look at the trend though. +5, +6, +5, +8, +8. Then that Republican pollster that I mentioned the last time, Trafalgar, has Trump up 1. I mean, this really isn't the greatest news for Trump in Michigan either, to be completely honest with you. I mean, about 2 months ago now, when Trump started to go back up, he was only down by 3. That was very good news for President Trump. But since then, Trump started to go back down. Biden's been going back up. But again, Trump's starting to go back up. Will Biden go back down? We don't know yet. It all depends on the debate. So President Trump is starting to make up ground in the state of Michigan a little bit. But again, the question is, Biden's at 49.2. Well, can Trump make up that ground? Well, let's go back to 2016, the state of Michigan. So the state of Michigan, Trump versus Clinton. Hillary Clinton had 45.4% of the vote in the polling. Trump had 42%. Again, Michigan's polling can be very, very wacky. Typically, there's a lot of undecided vote that they don't tell you what they're going to do. Trump was at 42. We ended up with 47.3. Hillary was at 45.4. She ended up with 47, so she overperformed what she was supposed to get. Gary Johnson, 4.8, underperformed. Jill Stein, 2.3, underperformed. It's likely the Jill Stein voters went to Hillary, the Gary Johnson voters went to Trump, and that's where that makeup came from. And then Trump and Hillary split about the undecided vote, probably. But you see what I'm saying from Wisconsin and Michigan was that last time around, Hillary was not popular. She only had 45% of the vote. She was not well liked. Trump had 42%, which means 45% is not enough to win a state in a presidential election typically. I know the argument was Trump won last time with a plurality of the vote. Yeah, he won 47% of the vote. 48% of the vote. He didn't win with 45. He won't win with 45. Hillary got 45 in a lot of these states. She didn't win. So a Republican or Democrat to win needs to get at the very minimum 48% or high 47s to low 48 and really hope they get lucky. I don't know if that'll work right now because Biden in Wisconsin was around 49%. Biden in Michigan's at 49%. So Trump's wiggle room to try and pull an upset with 47, 48% again, it's not there right now. Which is why Trump needs to eat away at some of Biden's numbers, get Biden down to 46%, 47% if he can. That gives Trump a chance, but at 49%, I don't know if Trump can pull an upset in Michigan this time around or Wisconsin if these numbers hold. Not saying they will. I'm just saying if they hold, there's not too many undecided voters left, which does bode bad news for Trump. Now, Pennsylvania. This is a similar situation I just showed you. Biden's at 49.6, Trump's at 43.9. Right? The last polls, New York Times, Biden up 9. It's New York Times, so I'm not going to put too much thought into it, but Tip, Biden up 5. ABC, Biden up 5. Fox, Biden up 7. Interesting thing is Fox actually overpolls Democrats, which you really don't think about too much. Like CNBC has it closer than Fox News does. I don't know, it just kind of looks weird. But again, here's Trafalgar Group. Biden up 2. So the poll that had Trump up 1 in Michigan, but losing in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, two states that most pundits consider Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are two states Trump is more likely to win than Michigan. If you asked any pundits about 3 or 4 months ago, and most of them still probably agree with that. But look, Biden's at 49.6, Trump's at 43.9. I'll load it. I'll go back in time again. We'll look at Pennsylvania as soon as it loads. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. So Hillary had 46.2. Trump had 44.3. Again, it's the same thing. Hillary was very unpopular. There was a lot of undecided vote. And what happened? Trump was able to take advantage of Hillary's unpopularity and somehow go around his own, maximize his own. Trafalgar had him up 1. Trump ended up winning by about 1. So let's just go off and say Trafalgar is the most accurate poll. Because they did technically nail Pennsylvania. Hillary's at 46.2. They had her getting 47. She got 47.5. They had Trump at 48. RCP had him at 44.3. Trump got 48. They had Gary Johnson at 2. Johnson got 2. Jill Stein at 1. She got 0.8, so that's about 1. So Trafalgar technically did nail the state of Pennsylvania, which is good news for Trump in the polling that it's Republican biased, but not when Trafalgar saying Trump is down by 2. 47-45 is not the best news for Trump. If Biden stays at 47, that's good news for Trump, because Trump may be able to pull a 48-47 win in Pennsylvania again, but Biden's also polling at 49% in the average. Hillary's polling at about 46. So I don't know. Again, if Biden stays in the polling average at 49 come election day, Trump's probably not going to win those 3 states. And now I think I've talked about those enough. I want to go to the map. What happens if Biden does win in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania? Biden's the next president. I mean, it's pretty simple that Trump, he needs one of Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania to likely win. Typically, the Republican strategy, for instance, back in 2012, Obama versus Romney, was Romney's plan was to win in Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, and then win Arizona. That gets him to 272. So they didn't need the Rust Belt. However, we know Virginia has become a very Democratic state in the last 10 years or so. Trump did do a rally in Virginia a few days ago, but is Virginia really competitive? I would say no. If Trump could somehow win Virginia, then he doesn't need the Rust Belt, but I find it really hard to believe Trump would win Virginia, and if he does, how could he win Virginia but not win one of the 3 states that voted for him last time? I don't know about that. So Virginia's probably not going to flip. So the simple reality is this gives Trump Florida, which polling-wise he's technically losing, North Carolina, where he's down a little bit, Ohio, where he was just up. I don't know if he's down again. Iowa, where I think he's up, but it's really close. This is giving him those states, and Arizona, where he's polling down by, I think, about 3 or 4 points. So this is giving Trump those states, and Trump still loses. So that's why Trump needs to win one of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania would get him over the top. Michigan, 16 electoral votes. That would get him over the top. Wisconsin and its electoral votes. That would get him to 269, 264. So Trump, if he could win Nebraska's 2nd district, I just clicked New Hampshire, my bad. If Trump was to win Nebraska's 2nd district, that could get Trump over the top. However, if Biden does hold all of the Rust Belt, though, this gets really hard for Trump because Trump's been spending a lot of time in New Hampshire. Okay, let's give Trump New Hampshire. I'm not saying he will, but let's say he'll win it. That gets Biden 274, Trump 264. He'll lose close, but can Trump win without the Rust Belt? It's tough. Well, if Trump does not win in Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, Trump needs to go in and either win the state of Nevada or the state of Minnesota. This is after him winning New Hampshire. Let's take away New Hampshire too. Trump needs to either win with Minnesota, and Minnesota alone would get it done. Trump could win with Minnesota, or he can't win Minnesota. Trump would have to win with both Nevada and with New Hampshire. Both Nevada and New Hampshire have not voted for a Republican since George Bush. So it's about 16 years at the earliest, 20 years at the latest. Have both of these states voted for a Republican in the presidential election. Now, both were close. New Hampshire almost voted for Trump last time. Hillary won it by about, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 votes or something. So it was close. And Nevada, it was not close per se, but it was closer than 2012 was, I believe. So if Trump can make inroads, could he pull an upset in Nevada and New Hampshire? Yes. But do I see both New Hampshire and Nevada going red on a night when Trump isn't winning any one of the Rust Belt states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota? Probably not. So can President Trump win without the Rust Belt? It is very, very unlikely. But technically, yes, but I would not bet my money on it. Trump needs to win one of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or even Minnesota. I'd put Minnesota in there for him to realistically have a shot at winning an election night. He needs to get it. He needs to cut inroads in these states and start picking up a lot more support in those 3 Rust Belt states, especially Minnesota. He doesn't need to worry about if he's competitive in the other 3, but Trump needs to start cutting into Biden's lead because at 49%, it's not looking good for him right now. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.